Hey guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I'm coming to you from Germany. Today is Thursday, it is the 23rd of July, and I am talking to you today from a different place, from our temporary home with my parents actually. And I am recording from Kai's study, I guess, because he's not working today. So I was planning to record from our bedroom. But this house is never quiet, and every time I had planned to do a podcast, something happened and something changed and something was too loud. So I am recording from here for today. It may not be perfect, but it should give us a chance to at least talk about some knitting. So how have you been? Like I said, we have now finally made the first leg of our moving journey. And most importantly, we have left our apartment in Munich. Everything is put away in boxes in storage. So all of that thankfully is done. No more packing. And we're staying here for, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 weeks. We'll see how that goes until baby is here and everything has kind of settled back in and all of that. So all of that still TBD, but I had already told you that I want to try to at least check in every now and then and talk about some knitting, even though it may not be a sort of typical podcast format, or it may not be as professional as it already never is. So anyways, today I have some knitting to talk to you about. I have some finished objects, I have some works in progress, and possibly some chatter at the end. I do actually have some yarn now that I'm thinking about it, but I forgot to bring it over and it's not that important. So what have I been knitting on? Essentially, ever since moving, I have been on a sock kick. So I've just been knitting all the socks, like every time. Like we spend a lot more time now, of course, hanging out with family, and I always just try to have some kind of sock project with me, near me, and then I can just zip along on some socks. So I have finished these socks and I love them. I really like them. I think they look really fancy, even though they're just a really basic pair of commercial sock yarn socks that I got the yarn on a sale. So this probably cost me like 4 or 5 euros the entire pair, but I absolutely love them. I don't know where the tag for this yarn is. I'm very sorry about that, but this is a Regia yarn. It is part of their color line. So the color line is basically just their normal sock blend, but I think it's a 2-ply and it kind of has this marled handspun effect. So I really enjoyed working these socks up. I did relatively long legs, as you can tell. 64 stitches on a 2.25 millimeter needle with a garter stitch short row heel. I always do the fish lips kiss heel and then just knit the purl rows. So these are done and I really love them. Again, I kind of sped through them, just like hanging out with family, and yeah, I'm really into all the socks right now, especially all the commercial sock yarn socks, because I don't have to wind any yarn, I don't have to organize anything. I can just get some needles, get a ball of yarn and go. So that is definitely my preferred method of knitting right now. And I have a feeling it may stay like that for a while, because while I do now have a Swift again, my first Swift got packed into the wrong box, so that is now hanging out in storage until it arrives in the UK, who knows when. So I got a new Swift, but I also need to fix my ball winder, and I don't really even know where to set up all of that because we don't have that much space. So right now I'm just knitting with a lot of commercial yarn, which is never a bad thing. So that is my only finished object, but I have started some new things. First up, of course, I'm knitting more socks. So these socks I basically started back when my Swift hadn't arrived, and again, my ball winder hasn't been fixed either. So I just grabbed, I wanted to knit some socks for Kai, and most of the sock yarn that I took to knit socks for him was still like indie dyed yarn in skeins, but I had this one ball of Regia Perfect, which, if you don't know, these are commercial sock yarns where you start from the inside and you can basically knit 2 matching socks. So I decided to cast these on, and it is not attached to any knitting right now because the first sock is done, except I was too lazy to do the Kitchener stitch yesterday. So this is the first sock. As you can tell, it is, well, it's supposed to be like striping down the leg, even though I will say, as much as I love the yarn most of the time, I wish that these stripes were a bit more pronounced. Like, they are definitely much more visible on the label than they are in real life. But I do really like them. Again, they knit up super fast. This is going to be a sock for Kai, so I did 68 stitches. I did my standard fish lips kiss heel, and yeah, I mean, you know how much I love my commercial sock yarn just in general. Not sponsored, I just like, getting a ball of yarn, and I feel like it's a very affordable way to do a lot of knitting. And Regia, I feel like the quality changes a lot. So sometimes the yarns will be super soft, and sometimes they'll be not quite as soft and a bit more splitty. So this may not be my favorite ball of theirs, but Kai really likes the socks. I know that these will hold up forever and ever, which is great because Kai destroys some of his indie dyed socks very quickly. So yeah, first sock is done, except for the Kitchener stitch, and once I do that, I'll just try to get the cuff cast on today, because then again I just have on-the-go knitting wherever I go, which is good because I'm going to the hairdressers today, and who knows, maybe I can do some knitting there. What else have I been knitting on? Let's just stay on the topic of socks. So again, I was picking some socks to knit without a ball winder, so I went with some yarn that this is actually indie dyed, but I had already caked it up. And this is some super old yarn, because this is yarn from Kristen of Woolenvine that I won in a giveaway by the Fawn Knits, who isn't podcasting right now, years and years ago, way back before we moved to Munich, so probably like 5 or 6 years ago. And I won this skein of yarn. And what happened is I knit this into a 2-color shawl. I did a test knit for Mina, and it was a really pretty sort of crescent shaped shawl. And then recently I haven't really been wearing my shawls that much, and I was going through all the things, of course, when moving. So I actually ripped out a couple of things to reuse the yarn that was really special. So this was one of the yarns. This is Woolenvine's Footsie base, which is a really nice sock base, I think. And I've always wanted to knit some socks out of her yarn, which I have done some like leftover socks, but not ever like a proper pair of socks. This is the Angry Orchard colorway. And you can maybe tell because it's kind of crinkly. What I did is I basically just wound it from the shawl, which has been worn and washed and all of that, just straight onto my ball winder. I didn't reskein it and wash it and get any of the crinkles out, which certainly would have been better, but for a pair of socks that I knew I was going to cast on relatively soon, I just didn't really care. It's like when you knit from a sock blank, you know, the yarn is also crinkly and the sock is crinkly, and then you wash it and it's fine. I wouldn't do the same for a cardigan or a garment in general, and I probably wouldn't do it if I knew that I was going to keep this yarn caked up for years and years to come. But yeah, I just wound it into 2 cakes, so I would be able to do 2 at a time socks. And I'm sorry, I'm scratching myself. I have some fiber somewhere in my face. Anyways, so a friend of mine, my best knitty friend Marion, and I, we decided to do a ABC sock challenge. We saw someone do that on Facebook, where they are knitting a sock pattern starting with an A and then with a B and so on every, I'm not sure if they were doing it every month or they were just, I think they started it during like the coronavirus lockdown. And I just thought it would be a really fun idea to do the same, because I do very rarely try to knit with new sock patterns. I tend to do very boring things. So we just decided to start with A, and who cares if we ever get to Z or if we'll just stop at A, like 1 pair of socks or 2 pairs of socks, it doesn't matter. So I am knitting the Aramis socks, I'm not sure how to pronounce them. It is a free pattern on Ravelry. Ravelry is not accessible right now, so I'm really sorry. I will try to see if there's another way to get it. because I certainly don't want to risk anyone's health. I haven't really thought this through, to be honest. But if I find another source for this, I will let you know. And otherwise, just please be really careful and only use Ravelry if it is safe for you to do so. Anyhow, this is a free pattern. It is a very, very simple sort of knit and purl texture. And as you can tell, I'm doing them 2 at a time. And because the yarn is kind of crinkly and tonal, slightly speckled, you can't see it super well right now, but I think the more I knit, like the longer these socks get, the more you'll be able to see the pattern, and it's just a really simple but effective texture pattern, so I really like it. The original has, like, I think a couple of garter stitch bands along the top underneath the ribbing, which I didn't do, and I think I also changed the ribbing from whatever it was to a 1x1 rib. But yeah, it is very simple, and I haven't made a ton of progress, but I am working on these, and it feels good to use up some yarn that is basically recycled yarn, and yeah, I like, using things and using things up. So that is my last sock whip. And then just very, very quickly, I will show you a little bit of my sweater knitting, but I won't go into detail because I've been talking about this sweater for quite a long time. So if you're interested in more details, modifications, yarns, all of that, I cover that in the previous episodes for sure. But this is my oversized mohair flax sweater. So the flax is a pattern by Tin Can Knits. And this is what it looks like. I'm knitting it with a commercial mohair yarn and a commercial, I think it's just a merino lace weight. So it's a really sort of drapey, loose fabric, which I really, really enjoy. And since talking to you last, I have finished both sleeves. So now I'm just working on the body, which is really, really hard to judge how long I want to make this body, because I am like less than a month away from my due date now. So while I have tried this on and it fits, it is very hard. I obviously want this to fit nicely lengthwise after I'm pregnant. So yeah, I'm kind of playing a bit of a guessing game with how long I want to make this sweater, but really I only have a couple more inches of stockinette and some ribbing to go, and then this thing will be done. So I am super close to being done with this, which is great. As soon as it cools down, I think I'm going to wear this a ton. I really, really like it. It's very soft, it's very cozy, and it's also quite light, which is always a good thing. And I do definitely have mohair up my nose now. So yeah, I just wanted to show that to you really quickly. Funny story, I joined the yarns back to work on the body. And I mean, I've done that a million times. And somehow I messed up and I had this huge hole in the front. And I didn't drop any stitches. It's just the way that I tried to weave in the ends that I messed something up, and then I unwove the ends and wove them in again and back and forth, and it just got more and more complicated. But I have now figured this out. Again, I have no idea what happened, and I was very tempted to leave it, but it was literally right in the front center of my sweater. But now I think the hole is gone and I'm all good. So yeah, that cost me a bit of nerve, but it is done now, and I have possibly dropped some stitches, so we'll just put this away very quickly and deal with that later. Last but not least, I cast on a new blanket project. I'm not sure, I think I told you that did I finish 2 blanket projects? I finished the baby blanket. I think I showed that last time in podcast, and may not have. I'm sorry, I'm getting very confused these days. Anyways, baby blankets are done, which was always the goal. And I'm also almost done with my granny's tribe blanket, which isn't a baby blanket really, it's just a blanket that I've been making since 2017. So I would like to finish that. I'm very close. So I cast on a new blanket because I kind of wanted to start, I like starting new blankets at like certain times. Like I started my last blanket in 2017 when I started a new job. And then it kind of has this sort of memory of a certain time frame, and I always know that I knit that in our time in Munich while working for this company. So I got here, and I think on my second day here, when I had like figured out some things and unpacked and got all the organizational stuff out of the way, I sat down and I cast on this blanket. And what I am doing is essentially a version of the very popular log cabin blanket. So if you Google log cabin blanket, there are many tutorials and patterns, most of them are free. And it's always sort of these blankets where you have a center square, some of them have mitered squares. I went with just a garter stitch square, and then you have these strips around. Again, there are just so many different versions of these. I kind of started with the pattern by Very Pink Knits. Except I cast on more stitches, so I cast on 30 stitches and then everything else you kind of go from there. So if you do 30 stitches, you do 30 ridges, and then it all kind of makes sense if you look at a pattern. And I did try to write down my modifications again. And I chose to only do sort of one set of strips around each square. So this first square is done. I really like the size of it. I'm using 2.5 millimeter US 1.5 needles and just any sort of sock yarn that I found, even though this is actually a sport weight, but I'm just using up leftovers. I'm knitting in the ends as I go, so I don't have to do any weaving in the ends. It makes it a tiny bit less tiny, but I'd rather have a non-perfect blanket than one where I'll never finish, because I know myself and I hate weaving in ends. So the first square is done. And I'm pretty far on my second square right now. I haven't been working on this a ton, but just a little bit every now and then. So this is going to be the second square, and what I'm actually planning to try is to... Ooh, why do I have a needle going through here? I'm going to try to attach these as I go, because again, I like seaming pretty much just as much as I like weaving in ends, which is not a lot. So my thinking is I will finish this strip and then I'll do the final strip, which is along all these stitches, and I will try to then kind of knit it onto the blanket like this. So that way I can kind of join them as I go. I'm not necessarily going to do that all the time, but right now it seems like a reasonable thing to do. So then at least I'll only have like strips of blanket squares in the end that I have to join. But yeah, I'm pretty much kind of making this up as I go, so there's no real reason or plan behind this. I just have a bag here with a couple of mini skeins. I took all of my mini skeins with me because I had pretty much decided that I really wanted to do this blanket project while we are here. Obviously I will never finish it while we're here, but I wanted to get started. So I have a ton of minis with me, and yeah, I'm just working on this every now and then, which again, once I have like picked a couple of colors and I know what to do next, this is again a very, very portable project. I can just have that like hang out in the living room with my parents and just work a couple of rows, and it's super simple. So like I said, that has been basically what I've been up to knitting wise. We've been here, or I've been here for a little under 2 weeks now, and Kai moved in a little later because he still had to deal with getting our furniture picked up by the movers and all of that, but thankfully all of that is done. I had expected to not be bored, but to have a lot of time here, which I'm not sure why I expected that, because it's actually been quite busy, which is also a good thing, because you know, there's still a couple of weeks to go and there's things to do, and I'm trying to, of course, do the things while I still can without a baby or without being super pregnant. So yeah, I've been basically doing different things every day and getting used to the new sort of flow of things, you know, having lived just the two of us for about 6 years, more than that actually. It is of course a big change, but everything is going pretty well. I'm glad to have my crafting mojo back. I thought I would be like knitting all day, every day, and that hasn't really happened so far, but it's not a big deal. I am getting some crafting time in for sure, and I think as things slow down a little bit, hopefully next week, I will have more time for that as well. Yeah, so I'm just kind of trying to get set up here and get used to everything and have a new routine and all of that. It's working pretty well. Kai is of course also working from here, which thankfully all of that is going well as well. And yeah, it feels pretty good to be finally here, which is where I'm also going to have my baby. So everything is finally kind of getting ready, and I've been, washing baby clothes and doing all the nesting, which again has been very, very good. And yeah, that is pretty much it. So as you probably have noticed, I'm still kind of working out how to place the camera without it falling over, which hopefully I have cut out by now. And this may not have been the most perfect sort of video podcast, but you know what? I think it really doesn't matter that much. I'm just trying to keep this thing going a little bit every now and then. I have no real ambitions right now to, it's not like I make money of this anyways, or I'm trying to sell anything or gather a huge amount of followers. I just wanted to check in. And again, thank you so much to all of you who have reached out these last couple of weeks and wished us good luck for the move and thought of us. That was really, really sweet. And I have turned into this terrible person who tends to just hit the like button and heart button a lot, whether it's on YouTube or on Instagram. So if I don't get back to any of your messages, please know that I read them and I really appreciate them. It is just a lot of things happening at the same time and trying to prioritize things, and I'm also trying to not constantly be on my phone, especially when I'm around people. So I have been a little bit more quiet, but I'm sure you guys understand, and I really, really appreciate those of you who do reach out. And if you just continue to watch the podcast whenever that happens, it means a lot. So I'm sure I forgot a ton of things that I wanted to mention, but I feel like at least I got some kind of video in without being disturbed. So that is a win for sure. So I am planning for the rest of the day. I have some errands to run. I'm going to get a haircut. Yes, finally getting a Corona haircut. And I will probably look exactly the same afterwards, but it'll be nice. And besides that, just taking it day by day, week by week until our baby boy is here, which is crazy. So I hope to be back with you relatively soon. Again, I'm hoping that next week things will calm down. We'll see whether that happens or not. Until I see you again, I hope you are staying healthy, you're staying safe, all of your loved ones are doing so as well. I hope you have some knitting or crochet or whatever craft you like to keep you entertained, and some pretty yarns maybe. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you very soon. Happy knitting. Bye!